ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're taking a look at City Skylines. Now this is a game that launched recently, and it's made by Colossal Order and published by Paradox Interactive. Now the first name may or may not be familiar to you, but the second name definitely has become something well known. They are the publishers behind games such as the Magica Wizard Wars game, which I quite like, and many other titles besides. So, what is City Skylines? Well, it definitely doesn't have anything to do with the Cities XL series, so don't be confused with that. This is an entirely different game, and a lot of people are touting this as the true successor to the SimCity series. And frankly, it seems to show a lot of substance, and a lot of promise as well. If you're looking on the right side here, you can see it already has Steam Workshop support, full modding capabilities. You can have all sorts of new housing, new plots, new objects, and many more things besides. There is even a map editor. So I'm going to have a quick look at the options menu, and there's not much to see here in terms of graphics. There is a tilt shift function, which is very nice for taking screenshots if you want that sort of effect. I have it at the minimum sort of setting. I don't turn it off completely because I do like a little bit of blur effect when I zoom in, which is quite nice. And it's got full volume sliders for everything, rebindable keys, which is very nice. And it even has language options as well, so that is very nice to see. Alright, so we're going to jump into a game. I'm going to click New Game here, and you can see there are a bunch of maps that come with the game. I haven't downloaded any custom maps for this particular video. These are what come with the game straight up, and it also has a bunch of random names, but of course you can just change that if you want to, and of course left-hand drive traffic is an option that you can choose as well. So all of these different maps have different properties. They have a different amount of buildable area, they also have a different amount of starting resources, and they also have a different amount of water, and you want a nice balance of each, unless you're going for a particular type of city. So let's have a look at this one. This is Sandy Beach. This is along the coast, and it has outside connections, all kinds available here, from planes to ships to rail, and of course roads. Roads being the main source of, well, everything really that at the beginning. And of course 63% of suitable building area, and many different types of natural resources, particularly in terms of forestry, which is quite nice to see. So we're going to just quickly jump into this, and I'm going to see what's what. Alright, so here we are. Loading times for this game are not particularly long, however I would assume that as your city grows, things will become much more difficult to load in, as there'll be lots more happening. Right, so this doesn't look like a very big plot of land. You might be thinking, well, is this like SimCity then? Because that didn't have a lot of buildable area at all. Not quite. If we go to the world view, or rather the full map view, this is only one of many plots of land we can actually get. As the city levels up, due to its population size, we get access to a bunch of new plots that we can purchase and expand our city. Now there is actually a hard-coded limit in the default game, but there are mods that will be able to unlock that for you, and the developers are quite happy for you to do that. However, they do say it is based on computer performance, and anything beyond the actual standard limit might cause some unwanted effects. So let's just get into it. This is our starting area, and let's start building. Now we don't have many options available. Everything seems to be grayed out, and that's because there is a sort of technology tree. As we build things, things will unlock. So our main highway over here is our source of traffic, and that's how the city begins. Now these are two exits over here, and if we zoom in we can actually see the direction they're going in. These are one-way exits after all, and this one appears to be the one going in, so we're going to build that. And there we go. First road available, and we now have the ability to build more things. However, I don't actually want that. We can actually build a one-way road, which is always possible as well. So now that we've unlocked a bunch of things, we can actually have a look at what we can build. We can even build a roundabout, which is quite useful too. So we can do that. In fact, I do want to probably get a one-way going, but I don't think that's going to be a suitable idea. Anyway, building roads is basically how we do everything. As I'll demonstrate right here, actually. So we built a road, and now there's this grid available. This is the zonable area. As we build along, let's just get that going. And there we go, that's connected. So this could be the start of a city already. We've got this zonable area here. By clicking zoning, we can actually make this a residential area, a commercial area, even industrial area if we so choose. Now we have our demand over here is high for residential, so we could just plop down some residential and that'd be it. Like so. However, a city also needs power and it also needs water, and there are a few ways we can go about doing this. So we could start off with some very nice green energy, and we could put that over in the darker area where there's more wind, or if we put in the lighter area we're going to have less power. So let's put this as far away from the city as possible so we can have some nice power going, and that will produce, once it's active, about 21 or 23 megawatts of energy, which is very nice for starting a city, but we probably need more later on. Next thing is the waterworks. Now, there is actual water simulation. If you have a look over here, there's actual arrows depicting a particular water current. The bigger the arrow, the faster flowing it actually is. And this is important because we have sewage to think about. This isn't something that the original SimCity games had. Of course, much later on it was added. I believe SimCity 4 might have had that. I could be wrong, I've not actually played that, but by comparison anyway, when I was playing SimCity 2000, it wasn't something we needed to think about. So this is something that's new to me. So we need to put a water pump, or alternatively, we can actually put water towers. These are also possible as well. But since we have access to water, we're going to put a water pump down, and this needs a drain pipe in order to function correctly. So we're going to put this further downstream so that it doesn't contaminate our water supply, which is a very real problem that we need to worry about. And now we can connect this to our little town here. And that's our water supply done. Both sides also need power, so we can go ahead and do that. And we can drag this over here. Now we don't need to build power to the individual zones, since all of that is actually taken care of once they start building, so we can actually have a look at that. And of course full speed options are available here as well. And any moment now we will have buildings building. There we go. So there are some houses building up. And there it is. That's the start of a new town. But of course, something like this can take a decent amount of time, and getting to unlock everything within this one video could take some time. So, in order to demonstrate what this game could be capable of, here's a city I built earlier. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cropsicle. So named because, well, the idea is kind of based on crop circles. This is a city that's entirely based pretty much on circles. So I've just noticed a very slight water problem over here. I'm going to solve that now. And you can see this is the size of a city that you can build, and this was a city that took barely 5 hours to actually build. Didn't take very long at all. And it's a fairly working city. There isn't too much of a problem. There are some issues, of course, as every city would have. But for the most part, it functions reasonably well. So over here we have our residential and business district, and over here is the main city. In fact, this Sheffield district is the one that I first started off with. And for the most part, everything seems to be working just fine. You can see over here the sort of zones that we have, a very large forestry industrial sector over here. And in fact, this is most of our industry here. And over here is our low density residential, followed by high density residential and office buildings. So everything seems to be working reasonably well. Demand for zones aren't particularly high, but there's not a very high abandonment rates. So things seem to be going reasonably well. Of course, we can still grow, and this is a city that's still growing. It's over 20,000 in population, and stuff is still going. Of course, yes, you can see there are some issues, but for the most part, it seems to be pretty reasonable. And we have a lot of things that we have to worry about in terms of city management, because there's things such as garbage that needs to be cleared out. In fact, we need more incinerators eventually. I think we might need to start building some more of these, but I'm going to worry about that later. And of course there's medical support, things like hospitals, and of course mortuaries and crematoriums and cemeteries are things that we need to worry about, as well as fire protection, police, education. In fact, there's even a functioning transport system. We can actually build underground metro systems, freight trains, as well as passenger trains, and later on, of course, ships and airports for planes are all things that we can actually do. In fact, there's even bus route planning. You can see I've already put a few down that are going all over the city, and these are actually several different bus routes. It's all very nice indeed, and quite nicely detailed. And even at this kind of complexity, this isn't as complex as it can get. In fact, this city is not very big, and we still can expand even further. But even at this, the frame rate is still fairly acceptable. Of course, you might expect it to drop depending on your computer's performance, and of course how big the city gets, but for the most part, it runs reasonably well. Now, there are one or two issues with the game, namely, there isn't much else other than actually building. Now, it might seem like that's a kind of redundant complaint, but things that might have made SimCity sort of special, aside from the city management, were things like disasters and accidents, and those don't seem to really exist in this game. I'm not sure if it's a feature that's going to be added later, but things like tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding. Flooding does exist, but it's a disaster that you can cause yourself. It doesn't actually just happen naturally. Other things are simpler stuff like road accidents or train derailments I've not actually seen happen, so I'm not sure if they're going to put that in later or whether or not that's just something they've chosen not to put in at all. Either way, it would be nice to have those available as an option. Modding support is fantastic though, so you never know, it might be modded in later on, or it might not. Another thing about the game as well is there are a little well, I would say a couple of little bugs here and there with the road system. The traffic simulation seems to be pretty good for the most part, but there are some issues with things like buildings. Sometimes roads don't connect, and for some arbitrary reason you can't actually connect them without bulldozing things before that, and so on. Road upgrades as well sometimes require manual bulldozing if you have particular buildings in the way, and sometimes the roads just don't connect in the way that they seem like they should. For example, connecting at like an odd angle like this sometimes is okay, but if I was to connect something like, let's say this, that is not possible. It just will not let me unless I connect directly to the junction here. So you can't make sort of side slip roads like that. It doesn't let you, which is, I suppose, might be down to maybe the traffic AI. It's very hard to say. But those are only a couple of issues. There aren't really too many things wrong with this game. The city simulation is very good. The graphics are pretty decent for a game like this. In fact, everything is very nicely detailed. There's a lot of detail in the game overall, like the types of... There's all sorts of different types of vehicles. There's even an in-game Twitter, which lets you kind of know what your citizens are thinking, and they all even follow kind of hashtags and all of that, which is very nice to see. Some of these are just sort of fluff news, really, that just doesn't tell you anything about the game, but it just adds in a little bit more of that social media feeling. The sound design is also particularly good. If you zoom in, you can actually hear the road noise and all of that. And if we go over to the industrial sector, you can hear the sounds of factories and all of that. In fact, we can actually let's click on one of the buses and follow it around the city and just see how it goes. And we can even modify it on the go, just like this. So, very, very nice indeed, although it's quite sad that this bus doesn't get too much use at all. I'm gonna zoom out there because the sirens from multiple ambulances seem to be, well, quite loud actually. But there you go, there are a lot of things that that are very good about this game. In fact, it feels so much like a passion project that has turned into something really, really interesting. And as far as city builders go, I think after what happened with SimCity, I think that everybody was kind of holding out hope for a decent city builder. And, you know, this doesn't have all of the features that SimCity might have had if it was done properly, but it's a very promising start, and it's got a very bright future ahead of it. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cities Skylines. Now available on Steam for $29, or your regional equivalent currency. My name is Panzer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.